and welcome to our look-in for Disney's The Lion King. My name is Elizabeth Kitsos-Kang. I'm a theater professor at George Washington University and a local actor and director here, and I'd like to welcome you. Before we get started with the discussion, because I'm sure you guys are going to be very interested to hear from all the actors and technicians and director of the production, I wanted to introduce Jennifer Ivey, the hair and makeup supervisor, and Patrick Brown, the actor who plays Scar. He doesn't look anything like Scar right now. So I wanted to ask if the two of you could just give us a brief description of your role with the production, even though I just sort of said what you do, and sorry, and a little bit about your history with the production before you were transformed before our eyes. This is what's going to happen. They're going to transform him. Costume, makeup, everything. The wardrobe supervisor, Jennifer, the makeup, hair and makeup person, and also the puppet supervisor. All of them are going to work on Patrick so he is transformed. But before he's transformed, if we could hear from you, the man, Patrick. Oh, you need your mic. A little bit about your role in the production and how long you've been with The Lion King.
I have been with The Lion King for 3.5 years now. I did the role originally in Singapore for a year and then in New York for a year and a half and joined the tour a year ago last June. I'm not going to say anything else. It's better that you don't know me too well.
Okay, Jennifer, could you share a little bit about yourself and your history with the production?
I've been with the show 10 years, and I'm hair and makeup supervisor, and I'm going to transform Patrick.
Great. Well, we're excited to see how this all comes about. So you'll be watching this happen as we have our discussion. Thank you so much, and you may get to work. All right. So I want to start by asking if each of you could please introduce yourselves to the audience and tell us a little bit about your role with the production and a little bit about your history with the production as well.
Sure. Okay. So I'm Debbie Shrimpton. I've been with Lion King for 12 years. I've worked on 3 different productions, 2 different languages, and joined the tour 4 years ago. So I've been touring the United States now for 4 years, a great privilege. This is my 50th city.
50th? Wow.
50th. So, as well as being in charge of all these guys and the artistic integrity of the show, I'm the resident director, that's my job. I also get to pack it up and put it back up in all of those different cities, so we're always challenged to make sure we can achieve the same artistic integrity in every single city. So that's what I do.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And L. Stevens?
Hey guys, my name is L. Steven Taylor. I play Mufasa in this show.
Yeah, give him a round of applause.
Thank you. I've been with this show for collectively for about 6 years. I came from the Broadway production in New York, where I was in the ensemble, and I also understudied Patrick as Scar, and I understudied Mufasa, and then played a lot of various other roles in the ensemble. And then I was also on the Gazelle tour 6 years ago as Mufasa, and then I've been back out here on the tour for a year, last June as well.
Great, thank you. And
my name is Tshidi Manye, and I've been with the company for almost like 13 years now.
how many years?
13 years now.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
13. Excellent.
I first started in Toronto for 4 years, and then I joined the rest of the years on Broadway. And I've been on tour. I think I came to the tour, that was last year for 4 months, and then I went back, and then I came back again. So and I'm, glad to be here and entertain you guys.
And I'm Drew Hirschfield, and I play Zazu. And
Yeah.
thank you. And I'm just beginning. I think last night was my 9th performance, so I'm new at this. I started rehearsing at the beginning of June. I started rehearsals then, so I'm a baby to
You're the
Lion
baby of the
King
bunch,
compared to
that's
so
right.
many of these
Excellent.
great people.
My name is Michael Reilly. I'm the puppet master of the show. My job.
Yeah, that's a big job.
So what I do on a daily basis is I have 2 assistants, and we go through every single puppet in the show and whatever it needs, painting, refeathering, everything that has to do with puppet is our job. So, it's a big job, but I've been with the show as long as Tshidi has. Actually, we started at the same time, 14 years ago, and it's been a great ride.
Thank you.
My name's Ken Davis. I'm the production stage manager.
Woohoo! Woo-woo! Stage manager! Yeah!
And people often ask me what that means, and the title kind of says it all. I manage the stage, so I work very closely with Debbie and the artistic staff, as well as with the technical folks, in preserving the vision of the director and the original designers and creative team. So that all kind of falls under my purview with a lot of help. So. Yeah, I'm relatively newcomer as well. I've been here nearly 4 years, which in Lion King world is a relative newcomer. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you so much, everybody. So, a few fun facts before I start asking some questions. So, The Lion King has been running for 17 years. 17 years. And this past weekend, it celebrated its 5,000th performance, which is amazing, here in Washington. It's also the #1 grossing show on Broadway, in Broadway history. And Disney has productions. There are 10 productions happening around the world right now as we're sitting here. So they're all over the world. They're on, I think, 6 continents, and I don't even know how many cities, all over the world. Enormously successful. And for those of you who have seen it, I'm sure you know why. It is such a spectacle and a beautiful, moving story. So I would love to ask you, Deborah, do you go by Deborah or Debbie?
Debbie, most of the time.
Okay, so Debbie, can you talk a little bit about what it means to be a resident director? Because I remember when I was talking to the Disney folks, they were saying that every single production all over the world has its own resident director, which is very unique. And all of you, I'm assuming, are trying to maintain, as you said, the integrity and sort of the artistic vision of Julie Taymor, the fabulous Julie Taymor. So can you talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges of doing that, of preserving that artistic integrity, and also how you make it your own, because you're a director in your own right, and put your own artistic touch onto the production.
Sure. I mean, I think that certainly in other countries, in London, this position is very normal. There are resident directors on every show. But here in America, we're not normally afforded that privilege. The production stage manager would normally be very responsible for blocking a new artist in. But because The Lion King is so huge and such a massive production, they decided that they wanted to have an artistic team for every production. So that we have a resident dance supervisor, and we have me, and we have a musical director, and I have Ken. So we work together as a team to make sure that we do exactly what you said, to preserve Julie Taymor's vision and make sure that every audience gets that glowing performance every single time. And sometimes the challenges of it are, yes, does it get wearing? Of course it does. 8 shows a week for an artist. I was a performer before I was a director, and yes, that's hard. You get tired, you get bored, dare I say it. These are the challenges of repeating something that many times. That's difficult. So with notes and encouragement and hopefully I infuse some energy into the cast, then they have the power to keep going. That's what we have to do. But we can't do it without all of the departments. We've got our puppets, we've got our costume master over there, Gergory. It's so important that we have all of these people to be a part and a parcel. I can't do any of this on my own.
It's a team effort.
Yes,
for
exactly.
Sure. Yes.
For sure.
And can I just ask you one follow-up? So when you say you try to infuse energy and all of that when you're here, do you go to, a lot of, how many rehearsals do you have usually when you move to a new city and have to deal with different venues? How do you deal with that? And are you present through a lot of the performances as well once you put up the show in a new venue?
Sure. The title's resident director. That means being there. So, but I'm afforded the privilege of being able to take evenings off. If everything's fine, the show's running beautifully, then I can take I can take a night off and go and have a nice dinner, whereas my artists can't. They have to do the 8 shows a week. But I trust them. Of course, if we're in a great position, then most of the time we get into a new city, we have a very comprehensive rehearsal and a dress rehearsal with everybody working together. We make sure that the show's looking right, and then we hit it. We have our opening night. We get reviewed. We have our opening night party. And once I feel like it's up and running, I'm like, okay, I can take a night off.
Okay, that's great. And let me ask you one more question. So, and this is going to sort of combine talking to Drew a little bit. So Drew Hirschfield, who plays Zazu, as he said to you, is brand new to the production, which is very unusual because a lot of the actors, I would say the majority of the actors, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that in The Lion King have been in different productions, in different cities, in different places. Sometimes they play different roles. As you mentioned, Elle Stephen, you've understudied and then you played different roles and then you jump from production to production. But Drew is like literally right off the street, brand new, jumping into a production of people. He wasn't living on the street. I didn't mean that. Okay, so get kind of working in a new person to a company that's been together for a while has to be an interesting challenge for both of you, for the puppet master, for all of you. And I would love for you to just start by talking about that, and then maybe we'll ask Drew some questions about how intensive was that rehearsal process? Because I think I read that the puppet of Zazu is the most difficult puppet to manipulate. So it must have been, Drew, you look surprised. Okay, so that must have been an intense process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
He was at my mercy. I had the help of Michael. We had 2 puppets in the studio, and it's tough. It's about strengthening arm muscles and getting the idea behind it. I mean, I was just ruthless with him. I think once we've been together for a few weeks, he's like, "Can you just not say the word blink? Just don't say it." So. And this is the thing, it's like the puppet has to breathe. Everything, in order for it to have life, then it has to be what you would do. How often do you blink in a sentence? And so he'd be like, he's working through dialogue and working through physicality and working with the puppet, and every second word I'm like, blink, no, blink, no, blink, no, go back, try that again. It's like, by the end of the first day, the last words of the rehearsal from him were oi oi oi.
So Drew, can you jump in a little bit and talk about what the process was like for you? So your first performance was here in Washington on July 6th. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes.
Last Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're really new, and then you were learning all of this, and you had to, don't blink. So tell me a little bit about what the process was like for you.
It was a fascinating, thrilling, and challenging process, and it still is. I'm still just beginning the process, I feel like. But it was a process unlike other processes I've been through in that most of the time when I arrived in Toronto, the company was in Toronto when I first joined for rehearsals, it was just Debbie and me.
Just you and Debbie.
And this bird and the backup puppet. So the 4 of us together in a room trying to make this thing live and breathe and have the energy behind the thought. And at times I was incredibly frustrated because, the mechanism is this finger articulates the mouth and the thumb articulates the eyelid. And then my arm will move the mouth around, right, and articulate that way. And sometimes in the beginning, I didn't know how to do it. I have a thought and I couldn't connect my thought, right, my words that I had to speak with my finger, literally, and it wouldn't work. And then at some point, I feel like it wasn't a specific moment, but at some point, I stopped noticing that it wasn't working.
It started to feel ingrained.
It started to happen a little bit. That's where I'm at so far, I feel like.
And Disney hires actors. They don't hire puppeteers. They hire actors, and then they teach the actors how to manipulate the puppets. So it's about finding that connection with the puppet. And maybe, Michael, you could talk a little bit as the puppet supervisor, a little bit about what that process is like for you as you're instructing actors to try to find their characters and connect their characters through the puppets. And then maybe Zazu could do a little presentation for us with the puppet. That would be lovely.
Sure. So what we do is we hire actors and we teach them the puppets, and that can mean anything. It could mean Zazu, which is a very, very difficult puppet, or it can mean a giraffe and teaching somebody how to walk on stilts, who's probably never done that before. So, it depends on the process, depends on the person, on the puppet. So for Drew, that's 4 and 5 weeks of intense rehearsal with Debbie, learning muscle memory. And that's really all it is. He has to learn the muscle memory, and it has to be there because he's got blocking, and he's got lines, and he's got to listen to the music. So he has to learn all that in the muscle. It has to be in there. And then with other things, like a cheetah or more of a dance-oriented puppet, we have a dance supervisor who will teach those puppets to those actors. So it's a lot of different types of puppetry. So you could never hire somebody for a specific puppet. It's too specific. So it's just much easier for us to hire actors and teach them to be puppeteers.
Is the giraffe the largest puppet or no? Which is the largest?
No, actually, we have a full-size elephant.
Oh, the elephant, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that was huge, right.
But giraffe is 12 feet tall, so I guess they're the tallest one. But the elephant is the biggest. It's about 120 pounds, and there's 4 people who puppeteer the elephant.
Great. Well, could we have a little demonstration with Drew with the puppet? That would be great.
So here's the right hand.
And blink.
Still looking at his director, yeah.
We didn't even rehearse that.
The mechanism for the wings, right? And we spent a lot of time in rehearsal in front of a mirror, because me being behind the puppet, I don't necessarily see exactly how he's living. And then part of the challenge, and I feel like the phase I'm in right now a little bit, is now I don't have a mirror, right? I'm on the stage. No mirror out there for me to check in and see how I'm doing. So I have to trust a lot of the work that's gone into...
Right, I'm his mirror now. But that's the thing. It's like we always work on the dual event. So it's the human and the puppet. So the actor has to sacrifice themselves successfully into the puppet in order to be successful. And that's sometimes very difficult because we need to be looking at the puppet and not looking at the man, and yet they're both there. So this is what the energy has to go through the puppet, and if he's that's where the intention comes into it. And if you don't have the security of the mirror, if you work in a mirror, show them, like if Drew is going to look through the puppet, then as the actor, that's completely right. Now, if he's going to go to the side, he's still going to look through the puppet. Go to the side, this way, right. Now, if you want to look in the mirror and check yourself, you break it. So his focus goes somewhere different. So that's the challenge, because if you rehearse like that, then you get into that habit of working that way, and then all of a sudden you're on stage, there's no mirror anymore, and the dual event only works if his focus goes through the puppet head.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting. Yeah, can we have a little Zazu voice?
Oh, sure. So I think what I'm trying to do ultimately is find a full connection between myself and the puppet. So we're all one, right? There's no separation. So I have a thought. That thought also is the puppet's thought. Right?
See, and there his body goes with it.
Esoteric, but I really think and I'm a baby at this, mind you. I don't know what I'm doing yet. But I think that's the key. There's something in that's important. What's that? Very well said.
Great job. Thank you, Drew. So, Stephen, if I could talk to you a little bit about your time with the production, and I would piggyback on some of the things that Debbie was saying, that Julie Taymor wanted to create puppets that had a human quality, and that was something you were just talking about, is kind of connecting the body and the actor with the puppet, and that's why she didn't put a mask right over your face, right? So can you talk a little bit as an actor how you combine those human qualities with the animal qualities and try to find that character in that process? What's that like for you?
Yeah, sure. It's like Drew, I think it's an ongoing process, even though I've been in the show for 6 years. But like Debbie was saying, it's something that Julie Taymor calls a dual event, you know, and so that's what makes the puppet seem as if it is alive. So it's the human, the actor, and the puppet existing together. And actually, when I joined the company, I was a temporary replacement for a guy who'd gotten a television show. So I had 2 weeks, where the normal rehearsal process is about anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. I got 2 weeks to learn my ensemble track and Mufasa at the same time. And so they gave me a DVD at that time. I don't think that they do that anymore, but they gave me a DVD. It was this National Geographic DVD. It was called Lions versus Hyena Mortal Enemies. And you see the show, and you see all of these you see all of these puppets happening on stage, and you think, man, okay, this is how they did it. They studied and studied and studied how these animals move, but it's not that. It is, I bring for Mufasa, for instance, I have a 12-year-old son, and Mufasa, among other things, is a father.
Yeah.
And so bringing that human element and that personal part of my story into the character, I think helps me make Mufasa come to life. And so I think it's and Debbie does a really good job at that too, is trying to relate human experiences to these puppets so they don't just look like animals, moving around on the stage, because that's not all they are. So I think it's a constant, development of trying to, bring that human experience to the puppet and make, essentially what Drew did come to life. So
that you said it's constant, even though after 6 years you're still working on that fusion process in every performance, bringing that human quality to it. Is that part of what keeps it really fresh for you after all these years, is that you feel like it's still a challenge as an actor to keep finding that connection and finding that fusion between the puppet and the human quality?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in addition to that, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but most of us are not puppeteers. So wearing the amount of costumes and masks on top of your head is something that is foreign to most of us. Even if you study theater in school, chances are that wasn't part of your training.
Right.
And so then when you try to exact your training on the stage, and then you add all of these other elements, of course it's going to be foreign. So it is a constant challenge to do that. And we do, we get 8 times a week to try to perfect it, and continue to try to perfect it in 13 years to continue to try.
Right, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Tshidi, I would love to talk to you a little bit. Yes, let's applaud for her again. She's amazing. So, 13 years you've been in this production, and as someone with South African roots, it must be really fun for you to be part of a production that celebrates Africa the way it does. And I know there are 6 different languages, I believe, that are spoken. And can you talk a little bit about, coming from Africa and then doing this play that celebrates your culture and what that means to you, and a little bit about the language. Maybe you can even demonstrate. What is it called? The language, I wrote it down.
The click story?
Yes.
The click.
The clicking, yes. But first, talk a little bit about what it means to you to be in a production that celebrates, your roots, your cultural roots.
The story about the Lion King is, I remember when we were growing in the olden days, like when we were, like, I'm sorry, not me growing, but the olden days, like the days of our forefathers, they never used to have cell phones. So whenever you need to talk to somebody, there's got to be, like, they didn't even have, like, a post office where you can write a letter and send it to somebody. So they used to have people with horns. In case a king or a queen wanted to say something, they would blow a horn to somebody who is in Maryland, and then Maryland will go to Virginia, and then Virginia will go to, they have people in these different places to say, hey, there's a celebration coming up. So that little horn that I have sometimes in the show, it's one of those, like, and then the other one will say, okay, I got the message. It was that kind of a situation. That's how I feel like the show connects into my life in that sense. And again, Mufasa in our growing up is looked upon as a lion. and Sarabi because it's vicious, strong, and all of that. And then Sarabi in our culture is regarded as a leopard because of the beauty of it. They have to be beautiful. They have to have all that rigorousness, and then whatever that is in the show. So that's how I think the show mostly talks about my culture because of what they have in the characters, within the characters. Now, Rafiki is the part that I play, is a shaman, a sangoma, and this is a traditional healer who can foretell, like a medium,
like a fortune teller,
like
medium,
fortune teller, who can foresee the future of people and all the kind of stuff. So the part that I play in the show, it's Rafiki. And again, we have that the sangomas in South Africa. I had my aunt who was a sangoma, so that's how I can relate into whatever the character is in the show.
Can you do a little of the clicking language for us? That was awesome. Can you translate what that meant?
I just say, hi guys, how you guys doing?
That's all she said, just hi guys. Well, that was great. It must be such an awesome responsibility too, Tshidi, to open the show. I mean, you're the first person who just draws us in at the top of the show, and sort of the enormity of that moment. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like for you?
You know what, in the 13 years that I've been doing the show, I still get nervous whenever I have to start the show. Yeah.
Even after all this time, you still get nervous?
Yeah, for some reason. Because I feel like I'm the only person on stage. Everybody has got, everybody that they can be able to relate with, but I'm always by myself. So whenever that curtain comes up, it's like, oh, I need to make sure that this is perfect, this is right. So that whatever comes behind me, I'm setting up the stage, I'm setting up the tone of everything. So when I start saying, nah, and sometimes you find that when the audience is there and they're watching, they're looking at you, and you see people crying, it uplifts you. It uplifts you, and then it motivates you, and then it's like, oh my God, I got it, and then you go,
you
go
do.
And you give it all.
You got it, girl. Yeah. I'll tell you, because I was crying when I saw it. Yeah. Yeah, and for the actors, just any one of you who want to answer this is fine. Do you see people feel? I mean, Safa, the when you die and all of that. Oh, I hope people have seen it. Sorry, never mind. Sorry, that does not happen. It's just the intensity of it, of how it affects people emotionally, because Disney's created. This whole story is so beautiful and it's so touching. And it's a visually stunning show, but it's also a beautiful, heartwarming, emotional story. So you must see people in the audience. Responding emotionally. How does that affect you, and does it sort of propel you as actors, or what is that like for you? Yeah, any one of you.
Of course. The response that we get from the audience every night definitely, I think, is energizing, but we don't depend on that, as actors, because it being live theater, every single audience is different. And so that's one of the things that I think keeps the show fresh for us as actors is the fact that you guys are different every single night. And we have people who have come to see the show 5 or 20 times, and because every single time that they come, they can pull away something different.
Sure.
Because the show is different that night. In every city we go to, the show kind of takes on a new identity of its, a new identity of its own. So definitely the response and the energy from the audience, we feed off of that, but we don't rely on it.
I think that's great. I think that's really interesting. So Debbie, I noticed when I saw the show that there were some really current references in the show, which I'm imagining 17 years ago. I'm not going to ruin it in case people are seeing it tonight, but that people didn't say. So is that something you as the resident director decides and puts in, or how does that all work? Just little comments here and there that people make that sound very current and we connect as an audience.
We have a team of people above us. The associate
Really?
directors are the people who make those decisions.
Yes.
But when something runs as long as this, in any given form of musical theatre, you never really expect that something's going to run for this long.
Right.
So then, of course, over time, you do freshen it. You do get new more modern ideas into it, and the writers are always, responsible for making those changes. We don't make changes on our own.
It's nice that they do that, though. I think that's really conscientious of them to be doing that, to keeping the show still honoring the integrity, and keeping that beautiful artistic story, but finding these references that can connect with an audience that is, happening now, a present-day audience.
Of course, it's important. The thing about Lion King that is so amazing is that it's still fresh and alive and modern. There are any number of other shows that I would have wanted to have done in my career that I didn't do, that you see them now, you're like, oh wow, it's really dated.
Right.
And
this
yet,
doesn't get dated.
No, and that's the thing. I guess that with having artistic teams that are always working on it, making sure that it stays fresh and modern, we've avoided that. If you think about how amazing it must have been 15 years ago when it started.
Right.
Wow, how did she come up with that concept and all of these ideas that are still so fresh and still so interesting. It was really quite something.
That's great. Gregory, can we hear from you a little bit? So you are the wardrobe supervisor, Gergory Young, and you, how many costumes? I'm sorry, I can't really see you, but do you have a mic? Do you have a microphone?
I do.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit, because first of all, how many costumes are there in the show?
We travel with 350, but on stage every night there's 250 costumes.
250 costumes. So how do you maintain and manage all of those costumes for the cast and for
Well, I travel
the
with 2
production?
assistants, and in every city we have to pick up 16 local dressers that help to maintain all the costumes. There is an 8-hour, every day there's a laundry person on call, work call for 8 hours a day, and then 7 days a week. And then we have day work calls where we do the maintenance for the shows and any repairs. We do repairs every day. We have a beater and we pick up 2 stitchers also to maintain the costumes. And that call is Tuesday and Fridays for 5 hours a day. So
Wow.
it's a lot of work to go.
How much laundry do you have to do?
Ooh, there's a lot of laundry. A lot of laundry. She's working 8 hours a day doing laundry straight through.
Really?
We
8
travel
hours a
with,
day?
There's 3 sets of laundry, so she doesn't have to turn it around that quickly. I mean, it has to be done quickly, because sometimes we have 2 shows. So, but there are 3 sets of laundry that she has to maintain and keep current and keep going.
So I imagine, I know that some actors play different roles, like a couple of different roles in the production. Like the actors in the ensemble sometimes have more than one costume, right? In the production, am I correct about that?
Yes. So like Steven said, when he started, he was ensemble and he studied Mufasa. So he would have laundry for his ensemble track, and then he has laundry for the Mufasa track. So you have some people that does cover 4 roles, then they have 4 sets of different laundry.
And are they just waiting backstage and doing these quick changes backstage? Is that how it works?
That's where the 16 dressers come in.
Yeah.
Like there's choreography on stage, there's choreography backstage. For safety reasons, each dresser is responsible in the bunker, we call it. It normally is upstage, which is behind the stage, or sometimes it's downstairs. But each dresser is responsible for 3 performers, and the principal dressers, they take care of 2 principals.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing. Ken, can I ask you a question or two? I would love to. Being a stage manager, yay, he's moving in closer. Being a stage manager, really, I mean, I don't think people understand the responsibility of being a stage manager. It's a huge job. You're responsible for, how many actors are in the show at one time?
We have 49 actors in the show.
49 actors. So you're responsible for 49 actors, making sure they're in places, making sure they're in costume. And I'm imagining calling the show with the lights and the sound, and there's all these musicians, live musicians. That is also an awesome responsibility. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be in charge of all of that and maintain the show technically as the lead guy, the stage manager?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about, Gregory's talked about, the laundry and the maintenance. Debbie's talked about maintaining the artistic part of the show. And we do that in all aspects of the show. We have, folks that are constantly working because, again, going back to the long-running show, and it's a big part of my job, is that the experience that you all, who's coming tonight? That you all coming tonight have the same experience that the folks who came to the Kennedy Center 6 years ago had. and even more so that those folks who saw Tshidi 13 years ago in Toronto had. And so it's a mission of the company and of all of us who work on the show. It's our passion to make sure that we deliver that, product's a harsh kind of generic word, but that the product holds up and maintains so that, you get your money's worth basically, but that you have the same visceral and emotional and artistic experience, whether you saw it, in 1997 on your high school trip to New York, which is certainly possible, that your high school age child is now coming to New York to see the show.
17 years.
And again, it's very, theater is a very temporal, very, as folks know, is a very kind of, unpermanent kind of existence. And so we're an anomaly, and and we're so blessed to be a part of the anomaly. So a big part of my job is working with everyone and maintaining that the integrity of the piece from start to finish. We have 49 actors, and it's very unique. I've done, this is I think my 10th Broadway tour, and the 5th time I've been through the Kennedy Center over the years. But our company is amazing. We have Tshidi, and we have a core of South African singers. So we've got those wonderful people there. We have dancers. Our show is choreographed by Garth Fagan, who is a legend in the modern dance world.
Yes, he is.
So we have folks who come to us from Alvin Ailey or from a modern dance company who don't necessarily come from Broadway. And then we have musical theater folks. And so it's an amazing amalgam of people. And you couple with that the fact that we have 10 productions running around the world with 2 more slated to open in the coming year. So we've got influences from all over the globe.
Is a standby actor someone like in case somebody gets hurt?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, people often ask, what is your day off? Do you get time off? I mean, we do 8 shows a week, Tuesday through Sunday, 52 weeks a year. So we get 2 weeks of vacation off, but people get sick, people twist an ankle, people have to go to a wedding, people have to go to graduation.
Sure.
And so we have people who are standbys who cover some of the principal roles, and then we've got people that are called swings, and these are folks in the chorus, in the ensemble, who can cover up to 5, 6, 7 different people. And so each night, myself and my team comes in 2 hours before the curtain, which is kind of right now, and we basically put together the show for that evening. With the help of Debbie and our artistic staff. So, it's lots of moving parts.
Yes, lots and lots of moving parts,
including the ones he's putting on.
And I'm sure you can't really listen to us right now as you're watching this happen. Maybe can anyone tell us a little bit about what's happening right now? Because I'm seeing wires.
Yeah,
and
those are battery packs that are being put in.
Battery packs in the costume.
Right.
Interesting.
And then those wires, the wires run up the back, and then we'll attach the controller. You see the elastic that's on Patrick's wrist there.
Mm-hmm.
And then that will secure the controlling unit that he'll use. And,
wow.
And that will lead to some magic that if you haven't seen the show yet, I won't spoil.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
So how long does this, Jennifer, how long does this process generally take to transform an actor into their character?
Patrick's takes me about 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the characters are anywhere from like about 30 minutes.
So,
but El Steven, on the other hand, he's about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
He's just a quick makeup guy, huh?
I have a small face.
And then some of the actors put their own makeup on, yes.
I'm sorry? What
And
did
some
you
of
say,
the
Ken?
actors put on their own makeup.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So you mean some of the actors maybe in the ensemble or what? Or
Yeah.
are they trained to do
Yes,
that?
of course. Yeah, everybody has a session when you join us. In addition to the time you spend with Debbie and with the dance department and the music department, you have fittings with Gergory, and you have a session with Jennifer and.
In learning how to apply your own.
Yes, the ensemble, the ladies, we teach them how to do their eyes.
Uh-huh.
And then we pick up 2 local people in every city, and we train them on the makeups that we do that transform them into different animals.
Oh, that's great.
And so we have 2 makeup stations on stage left and stage right, and they come during the show. And
So you're on call backstage the whole time during the show.
Yes.
For anybody to come off in case they have to change their makeup or adjust it or.
Yeah, we have cues, we call them.
Right, cues.
So.
Yep. And you know what, Jennifer? I have this question that I was thinking about in the car on the way here. When you're making someone up You know, they come. You know, Patrick sat down in the chair. Hey, Patrick, how you doing? Hey, hi. I'm gonna put your makeup on. Do you start to see the actors change personality as you put on their costumes and
Yes.
start becoming their character as they start to look more? I think I just got the answer to that question.
I think that answered the question.
Yeah. So is that interesting for you as a makeup artist to see all of a sudden the conversation changes?
Well, it kind of all goes together with the makeup, the costume, the puppet. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so what are we doing now, Gregory? What are we putting on now?
These are his chaps that go over the jumpsuit.
Okay, wow.
Actually, before we put these on,
Yes,
will you just hold them?
yes. Oh my gosh. I think they weigh as much as I do.
Nice touch.
That's shocking. No, that was shocking to me. They're very, very heavy. How do you move around in those?
We call it the Disney diet.
And they're all leather and suede.
Leather and suede. So these costumes are very intricate and made of really cool material. Of course, we know everything goes smoothly all the time, but it's theater. So theater means sometimes things happen on stage. Maybe sometime where a prop broke or an audience reacted in a way and something changed and you had to respond as actors or as the stage manager or even as the director, you had to adjust something. Do you have any stories about that you could share with us? Oh, Ken, you're laughing. You have something.
No, I mean, seriously, going back to a big part of our jobs, and is that it is, tonight is performance 5003 of the show.
That's amazing.
It will be, and it will be a completely new experience from 5002, and from what 5004 will be tomorrow. So, I always say when I go to work at night, when we leave here and we go back over, I have no idea what's going to transpire between now and 11. And so, we actually have rehearsals. Debbie runs contingency rehearsals and Plan B rehearsals. We have a lot of moving parts, literally moving parts of scenery. If you've seen the show, Pride Rock and all the scenery. So of course, it's computers. Things are going to go wrong. But it's our job to make sure that, going back to what I was saying earlier about quality and the product, it's our job to make sure that if something does go wrong, that you don't know about it,
Right.
and that
We
it
know
doesn't
nothing about
affect doesn't affect your experience at the Lion King.
Yeah, that's great. Well, while we're waiting for Scar to be done, how close are we, guys, do you think?
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes.
3 minutes, maybe.
Okay, 3 minutes. Well, maybe we could bring up the house lights and take one question from the audience in that 3-minute period.
I actually have two questions. Seeing the amount of time it was taking to put the makeup on the gentleman there, first of all, he's in hot lights on the stage. He must be perspiring. Why doesn't the makeup come off? Number one. And number two, after seeing this, I remember as a child my mother getting me ready to go outside in the snow. What happens if he has to visit?
Thank you for your question. So, Jennifer, can you talk about that a little bit?
The makeup is a grease paint, and so in order for it to set it, that was like my second to the last process I did was powder it, and you have to kind of press it in, and then once you brush it away, it's set. So
even if an actor sweats, it doesn't go running down their face.
in a
Most of
perfect
the time.
world.
In a perfect
but
world. Good answer, Jennifer.
For the
Okay.
most part, that has not happened.
Okay.
And to your other question,
Yes, Patrick.
it took me
Scar.
3 years to beg them to put a zipper in there.
Oh, it looks like we're getting to the finishing touches. Look at that. That is amazing. Yes. Big round of applause. So I believe that Patrick has left the building and Scar has arrived. So that was a very Scar look, I have to say. That little sarcasm. I've seen that.
It's hard to distinguish the two.
Is that right? So Scar, can you show us a little bit about how your costume operates and how you work your character?
Everyone's talked a little bit today about the puppet training. So for those of us that wear this kind of a mask on our heads, this is all based on Balinese puppetry, and so that you learn to move your head in a specific way so that the face stays alive when you look at people. Because if I just move my head, it doesn't sort of have the same kind of life or poetry to it. It has to. You have to remember that your eyes are actually up here. That's who's looking. So people think that it's this movement that triggers the movement of the mask, which in fact.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Which isn't true because it's here in my hand.
Oh, that's even more impressive.
So I have this tiny little trigger that's painted the same design as my costume. There are two sliders. One of them just moves the mask, and the other one moves the boom that lowers and raises it. So that if you want to do something very specific, you can actually control the speed.
That's amazing.
So in its most simplistic form, I mean basically just on and off. So so you don't have to spend a great deal of time really worrying about that, so that most of your time is spent worrying about how you're going to move. Actually, I find with this costume, that's the biggest thing you need to worry about. Because people step on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, do people step on it during the show?
It gets closed indoors.
Stuck on the rock.
It gets stuck
Stuck
under
on
the
Pride
it
Rock.
does get stuck under the rock, so it spends most of its time there when I'm not on stage. Seriously.
That's great. And then moving in those pants, as heavy as they are, can we
So,
see you move across the
this
stage a
isn't-
little bit?
Actually, you know what? These. So this is a brand new
the
costume.
director's laughing.
I just got this costume in Toronto, so I've only been wearing it for 2 months. Now, unfortunately, because this is leather, when it arrives, it's like wearing a cardboard box. So you're literally. So they were so stiff, in fact, that I could only wear it for a show or two, and then I had to stop because it was exhausting. I couldn't actually do anything. But actually, once it softens up, it moves just as much as your regular pants do. What actually changes the way you walk more than anything is the fact that it's a heel, which brings you, yeah, she knows, girl wears heels. Brings you up and forward. Also, because even though this isn't that heavy, this is one of the first questions everybody asks is, oh, it must be so heavy. It's not actually, it doesn't really weigh that much.
How much does it weigh?
9 ounces.
9
There you
ounces.
go, 9 ounces, yeah.
It's amazing.
In fact, the boom that it's on probably weighs more than the mask. Yeah, so this metal piece weighs more than the mask does. But it does change your balance. So you can't, if my head's back here, then Scar's looking up there. So everything has to become lifted and perfectly straight, and also it's a matter of balance because you will, In fact, sometimes I do, just sort of. Often.
Wait, so can we have a little more time for questions. Thank you so much, Patrick. Scar, that was amazing. Woo-hoo! It's got to be hard to sit with that tail, too, right? Not too bad.
Just whip it.
Whip it, got it. Whip it around. Okay, what other people, yes, I see a hand up there. Can you come down to the microphone, please? You can ask a question of anybody here on the stage.
I just wanted to know if the young lady would sing a little bit for us, please, if she could.
Tshidi, they're asking you if you could sing.
Yeah.
You know what, Tshidi? Maybe just one note and don't strain your voice because I bet you haven't warmed up your voice yet, have you? Okay. Just one note.
Woo!
So if you haven't seen the show, now you want to, and if you've seen it, you remember, and you just want to see it again, right?
Wait till
Yes.
she's warm.
You have a question, young man. Why don't you go right over to the microphone? Oh, are there people at the microphone already? Oh, come on. Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. And you can go up after him, okay? Go ahead.
I have a question for Scar. How much does all of that weigh, actually?
49 pounds.
Wow, that was a great question, by the way. Very good question. Okay.
It's Scar and Pumbaa are the two heaviest.
That's amazing. Okay, go ahead, sweetie.
How hard was the choreography?
How hard is the choreography?
Yeah, and I have another one. How long did it take to learn the choreography?
And how long did it take to learn it? Would any of the actors want to talk about that?
Don't look at me, I don't dance.
Okay. But you dance. Can you talk a little bit, CD or Drew or L. Stephen? Or maybe Debbie can talk a little bit about the process as the director.
I'll take it.
Okay.
It takes between 4 to 5 weeks to learn the show. It doesn't matter if you're a dancer or a singer or an actor. It doesn't matter. That's what it takes. The choreography is extremely difficult, very complicated, and takes an extraordinary level of technique from any dancer, absolutely. And even the blocking that the actors have to learn, it's memory, it's repetition. For all of the ensemble, all of the patterns are extremely complicated, so it takes a long, long time to learn it. And there are Bibles, what we call Bibles, books where everything is written down, documented. There's a number grid, there's lines and marks on the stage where we can, where we can be sure that the actors were properly lit. So complicated is the answer to your question.
It was a great question, yeah, and it's a really complicated answer because it is complicated. Yes, go ahead, sweetie.
I'm a musical theater student, and I was wondering if you had any advice for someone who really wanted to break into productions and be a working actor.
It's a great question.
Anyone?
One of the actors? Go ahead, Al Stephen.
Sure. Congratulations. Yeah, we need a lot of you. The thing that I always tell people is don't be afraid to learn new things. The things that you think you won't use or that you might not use. For instance, I was at an audition once, and it was actually a singing audition. And it got down to 4 people, and I was one of the 4 people. And they asked the 4 of us, we're all standing on the line, do any of you tumble? And nobody raised their hand, and I raised my hand. Yes, I tumble. Do any of you juggle? Yeah, I juggle.
Yes,
and so
I do.
the things that you think might not transfer into the theater world absolutely will or may, in the future. So, learn a new language, take dance classes even if you are a singer, and if you're a dancer, take voice lessons, take acting classes, do as many things as you can, because you never know when it's gonna be down to you and somebody else. And that thing that, you thought, your mom kept telling you, go to martial arts or go to Taekwondo class or something like that, might end up helping you book the job. So don't be afraid to learn new things is what I would say to you.
That's great advice. Thank you. Okay.
I was going to add on that. I think one more thing is that whenever you go, like when you do auditions and stuff like that, sometimes when when they say no, you didn't book the gig, people get, they get down. They're like, no, I don't want to do it again. But you need to know that perseverance is always going to be a success. And no doesn't mean you're never going to get it. It means that not now, but you still, can go and audition and you'll get it.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And I saw you standing there. Go ahead, please.
I saw this show last Saturday and it was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your talents with us. I was wondering if some of you could share the audition process, how long it took you, what you went through to get these parts, because I know that for Broadway shows it can be very grueling. So if any of you could share that, that would be great.
Well, Drew, you just went through it, so maybe you can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. I think at first there's a team of casting directors or a casting office in New York that handles The Lion King, and I think I first auditioned for them, and then they brought me back in a second time for the creative associates, and maybe even a third time with the associates, and this was all without any puppet, right? This was just your typical acting audition. and it was going well. And then they said, okay, we want you to come back in one more time and play with the puppet. And I guess that went okay.
Apparently that went okay. What about you, Al Stevens?
I just want to add on. Drew is lucky if he only had 4 auditions. Drew, and if that's all it took. Drew is pretty lucky because that I think is an anomaly. And like Tshidi said, I auditioned for the show I don't know how many times over the span of 2 years, and they kept bringing me back and forth. And they had this thing called Lion King class, where they would fly you out, and you and 10 other actors are in this camp, and you learn, South African languages and history and dance and like all of that. But over the course of 2 years, I was auditioning, and like Tshidi said about perseverance, if I had given up when they said no to me the first time, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys. So it doesn't mean that you're not right for the part or anything. It just means that it's not right now.
It's not your time right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
2 years.
2 years?
Ha.
There you go.
I told you Scar had arrived. We've run out of
10
time.
years. Wow.
Really? 10? Wow.
My first audition was for the Toronto production in 2001. My third callback was at 10 a.m. September 11th, 2001.
Oh.
When Disney says they're going to keep you on file, they're going to keep you on file. 10 years later, they called me and said, we'd like to see you again.
10 years later. Wow. That is a great story. I want to thank our director, our actors, our stage manager, our wardrobe and makeup and puppetry and all the wonderful artistic team from Disney's The Lion King for being here with us today. Standing ovation, I love it. And if you could all stand, please, and take a bow. If you haven't seen the show, go see it. If you've seen it, see it again. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much.